Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the last Scorsese episode, for now, of Welcome to the Wasteland, because I started this in September, and it's April, and 31 films through finally reached The Irishman. And then I have my brother Ethan here to chat about The Irishman, because Italian people, except for Frank Sheeran, because he wasn't Italian, but Philly people too. But Ethan, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Would you like to shamelessly plug anything before we get started?
Yeah, why not? Go follow Dante Rowe Cosplay, all one word, on Instagram. I promise you'll love it.
Yes, my brother is a cosplayer. I have dabbled. Maybe when I go back to a convention. Maybe this January. I don't know. We'll have to see. So things are getting better. Definitely wasn't going to go this January. Really haven't done much besides go to the movies anyway. So I'm just like finally going back to consistently eating out in restaurants, which, oh my God, tastes so much better than styrofoam and plastic delivered to your house food.
Nice,
so that's
and
a digression. But here on Welcome to the Wasteland, we have three parts of the show. We have Coming Attractions, our feature of the week, which is from a director that I'm spotlighting. And yes, this is Scorsese's last episode until probably January when I do Killers of the Flower Moon. So, because that'll be coming out in December, most likely. And then we have some recommendations for you. But for Friday, April 15th, Ethan, which movie were you most excited about?
Choose or Die.
Choose or Die, which is a new Netflix film about a young programmer who finds an 80s video game and turns it on and it's cursed. What interested you most about this one?
Video game. And
there you go.
Basically, I don't really know like too far into it, but I feel like a cursed video game sounds like it could be pretty fun to watch.
So I had kind of buried the lead too. Robert Englund's in this too, aka Freddy Krueger. So,
boy,
I didn't tell Ethan that before we
started. Then like I wouldn't have had to think, and you wouldn't have had to tell me the other like four that were coming out.
There we go. But this is starring Asa Butterfield. It's a Netflix film, and I think it's like an hour and 25 minutes. So it's a short, sweet, to the point horror film coming out that Friday on streaming. My pick is Duel, which is a new science fiction film from the director of The Art of Self-Defense. So this is really dry, darkly funny, and intense, and stars Karen Gillan as a woman. The basic crux of the idea is she's dying, wants to get a clone made of herself, and then when she finds out she's not dying, doesn't want the clone anymore. Clone doesn't want to go anywhere. So they have to train for a year to fight to the death. And basically, this is starring Karen Gillan. It has Aaron Paul, who plays the guy who trains her to fight her clone. And if anybody watching has seen Art of Self-Defense, you know this movie is dark. It's really like awkwardly funny and probably violent. So, and I've actually gotten a chance to see it, but I was super excited when I got a screener for it. So I'm not going to say anything else because I'm embargoed, people. Oh, I guess technically by the time this comes out, I won't be. So I guess I could say some things. I really enjoyed it. I think it's really interesting. But obviously the biggest movie coming out is Fantastic Beasts and the Secrets of Dumbledore, which after Crimes of Grindelwald, I'm not like excited. And also all the shit storm around this movie, obviously, Ethan, you have some strong feelings because no more Johnny Depp.
Yep. It would have been my number one pick, except there's no Johnny Depp, so.
There you go. I'm a huge Mads Mikkelsen fan, but, between all the stuff that like J.K. Rowling's been saying, and then Ezra Miller literally just got arrested for threatening to murder a couple, it's kind of like there's a little awkwardness going around this movie. And you know what? I probably would have been more excited. I would have still been excited if I wasn't disappointed by how these movies have been going so far. Because, like, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. And it's just like when are these movies about Fantastic Beasts again?
Yeah, that's I feel like it is just trying to be like
It's a Harry Potter
just
prequel. That's about it.
movie and not the books that are inside that universe.
Well, yeah, I think they decided like after they're like, we're gonna make a 5-movie series about Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. They're like, maybe we won't get all the Harry Potter fans if we don't throw a bunch of Harry Potter stuff in it. So like Dumbledore, Grindelwald, and then you're like, but what about Newt and his Fantastic Beasts? Because like at least the first movie, I feel like most of it is about that. And then you kind of get like the Grindelwald tease at the end. The last movie was definitely not about Fantastic Beasts at all. And
Nope.
I highly doubt this one is either. So it just, I don't know. It's weird. Odd choice.
I would definitely be excited if they kept with that theme, that what it is actually supposed to be like.
Like at this point, I'm like, why is Newt even in this? Like, I don't know if it was like he was always supposed to be like Dumbledore's like right hand, or it was just like, well, now we got to shoehorn him into the story. And because the thing is, like, I thought the first one was decently charming. I love Dan Fogler as Mr. Kowalski, the Muggle, and like he's a lot of fun. I'm a fan of his from Balls of Fury and from Fanboys. So I'm a huge fan of Fanboys. And then, interesting enough, little tidbit, a new show coming out on Paramount Plus, which is crap, I forget what the name of it is. It's about the making of The Godfather. And he's playing Francis Ford Coppola. I'm like, why? Because he's chubby? I'm just like, what? It's like, I'm gonna just put this out here and move on. Francis Ford Coppola was so significant because they took a chance on a young director who was actually Italian American, who was going to tell an Italian American story, and then they cast somebody who's not an Italian American to play him in a TV show. And I'm like, I don't know, that's weird to me, but whatever. But we're going to have plenty of Italian people to talk about in a second because we're talking about a Scorsese movie. But you know, they also have Father Stu, which is a new Mark Wahlberg movie coming out, and a few other things. All Want to Go to the World's Fair is finally coming out after it was in a festival circuit back in last January 2021. So it finally got a release date. So there's some interesting things coming out this week. Just not as interesting as the following week when we get The Northman and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which are two of my most anticipated movies of the rest of this year. So
that's
but
like a sounds like a mouthful.
Oh, I'm sure you've seen a trailer for it. It's that Nick Cage movie where he's playing Nick Cage and gets paid $1 million.
Like arguing with dang it. What is his name? Dude from Game of Thrones.
Oh, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, Pedro. Yeah.
Who's also the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Mandalorian. That's probably what people. Yeah.
Oh my god, it's the bromance.
I don't want to kill you.
You're the last person I want to kill. Oh my god, I saw it this past Wednesday because I got an early screening at the Morristown Mall Regal. So, it's worth it. It's so much fun. But I'll be talking more about that next week when I start talking about Steven Spielberg, which Ethan will be coming on again soon for Duel.
It's the last one and then the first one.
Huh?
I'm the last one for Scorsese, probably the first one for Spielberg. Yes, second.
So I decided to do his first short film called Amblin, and my friend Rowan's going to come on for that episode. But then, yeah, in 2 weeks you're going to come on for Duel.
It's a huge, though, not 31 in line.
Yeah, the Irishman is literally 2 hours longer than Duel. It's a feature-length film longer than Duel, because Duel's an hour and 30 minutes, and this was 3 hours and 30 minutes, which I watched on my Criterion DVD yesterday, which was fun. So we're going to segue now into The Irishman, which is Scorsese's most recent film. I'm not going to say his last because he has a new film coming out this year, or it better come out this year. It's probably coming out in December. It's also an Apple TV Plus movie, so it's probably going to come out in theaters in December and drop on Apple TV Plus in January. But The Irishman is his, to give a little context, a movie he'd been trying to make for a long time, except nobody wanted to give him money because he wanted to spend well over $100 million to de-age a bunch of like 70 and 80-year-old men so that they can play themselves through a whole entire movie. And who was the sucker that would give him the money to do it? Netflix. So Netflix paid a lot of money for him to make The Irishman. And I did actually see this in a theater when it came out. I saw this at Montgomery Cinemas, and I sat there in uncomfortable, because like this is like a small indie theater that has like shitty seats in it. I sat there for all 3.5 hours watching this movie. But this is the story of Frank Sheeran, the man who, or who may have, been the one who assassinated Jimmy Hoffa. And according to his book and his memoir and stuff like that, he did it. But no like official investigation has ever found out whatever happened to Jimmy Hoffa. But The Irishman is the story of this hitman, Frank Sheeran, played by Robert De Niro, who becomes very close with the Bufalino crime family in Philadelphia, led by Russell Bufalino, played by Joe Pesci, and has his lawyer brother, played by Ray Romano.
Hell yeah.
Who works with Angelo Bruno, played by Harvey Keitel. And then Sheeran becomes very close with a Teamster union head, and overall one of the most first teaser trailer or announcement video came out for this movie. Literally all it was a film by Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, Harvey Keitel, and then it's like, I heard you paint houses. Yes, I do.
I want to talk.
And then it just says The Irishman coming to Netflix in theaters. I'm just like, didn't have to show any footage from the movie. It just literally needed to pop up 5 names, and then you're like, I'm sold. Because as for the greatest actors of all time and one of the greatest directors of all time, and you're just like, well, I would never have thought this was ever going to happen, but it took until 2019 for it to happen. But Ethan, why did you specifically want to come on to talk about The Irishman?
Mainly because all of the movies that we saw when we were younger and growing up, all these iconic actors, whether they were in Scorsese or other movies, all coming together in one film directed by Martin Scorsese. It's like going to an all-star game for baseball.
Right.
And 3.5 hours of watching all these awesome actors like just be on screen together and watch their dynamics and stuff. So I was like, that's all really needed to know.
I know one particular scene, because I just rewatched this yesterday morning. Like, you have Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Harvey Keitel all sitting at a table together in an Italian restaurant, and you're just like, this is really happening. Just like, this is crazy. Because obviously I've watched all of Scorsese's movies at this point, and what makes this so interesting is because his original like muse, like lead actor, was Harvey Keitel. He was in his first ever feature film. He was the lead in Mean Streets. And then he kind of took a back seat and started doing supporting performances in like Taxi Driver and Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And then it had been years since he actually was in a Scorsese movie. And then De Niro became his lead from Taxi Driver all the way up until Casino, 30 years from the mid 70s until 1995. And then he took a back seat and then Leo took over. And Leo from Gangs in New York up until Wolf of Wall Street. And then you had like Silence, which had Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, Liam Neeson in it. But this case, when I heard the announcement, like Robert De Niro was going to be leading a movie again, and I'm like, what? Because legitimately, for the past like 10, like honestly 15 years, if it wasn't him popping up in a David O. Russell movie, like Silver Linings Playbook, or like Joy and American Hustle, he wasn't really doing a whole lot. And like he did like Dirty Grandpa and War with Grandpa. And you're just like, what happened to Robert De Niro? And then like he had this, and just like, oh my God, he's leading a Scorsese movie again. And Al Pacino's just been a joke, honestly, for years at this point. I think Jack and Jill kind of like pushed that over the edge, where he literally just played himself. And then like Joe Pesci's been retired for like over 20 years. It's like he hasn't acted in a movie, I don't think, since like the late 90s, early 2000s at best. And like Harvey Keitel will pop up here and there and stuff, but like this was like a big deal. And being able to see all of them on screen, something like you're never going to see something like this again. This is like special. And I know some people who aren't a big fan of this movie. I love this movie, but like you can't deny like this is like something special, and you're never going to see something like that again. But I guess, Ethan, what are some of your favorite things about the film?
I wanted to touch on the I heard you paint houses part.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's like the line from Taxi Driver. In like 10, 20 years, that's going to be one of the most iconic lines that come out of a movie. I feel like it's just how it was delivered. It was nothing like, it wasn't crazy Pacino being like, ah! But it,
yeah,
I don't know. It's like kind of like an eerie like line, and it was delivered from Pacino to Robert De Niro. Yeah, I feel like that's going to be one of those that everybody starts quoting.
I definitely quote that.
And they're going to probably.
Well, because the thing is, like, this is only the third time we've had the two of them interact in a movie. Because, like, they were in The Godfather Part 2 together, but they were in completely different storylines and never actually interacted.
So,
but, like, Heat.
Yeah.
Oh, that cafe scene. Just sitting across that table from one each other. And then Righteous Kill, which, like, that happened, what, like 2008 or something like that?
Like, watch that.
But like this was a big deal, and like I remember sitting watching this yesterday when Hoffa and Sheeran are like talking at that big event, and it just kind of hit me. I'm like, I'm watching Robert De Niro and Al Pacino interact in a movie directed by Martin Scorsese. What? And it's just like, when was this ever going to happen? Because like that's the thing, Scorsese hadn't worked with De Niro since 1995, and he had never worked with Al Pacino before, which was crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, because it's like you would have expected like that had to have happened at some point over the past like 50 years, but it didn't. And it took until 2019 for him to show up in one of his movies. And that line, though, like that sold the movie. That's all he had to say. And obviously it's code, right? Because like he's obviously not really painting houses, but like you know exactly what they're talking about. It's like, I need a house painter. You want to come over? And just like that, and just De Niro just been like, yes, I do. Just like, dang. Mm-hmm. Like And the thing is, like, he brutally kills quite a few people in this movie, and he just like shames like, hey, just like pop right on the street, and nobody's gonna say shit because it's Philly. Nobody's gonna say anything. Like, I think the one like when they kill Sal, who helped out with like the Hoffa assassination because he went into the feds and people thought he was talking. Like, just middle of the night, just walks up and like, bam, shoots him right in the face. And they like shoot him like 7 times between the two of them. And like somebody like peeks out the window and just puts that curtain back because like nobody's gonna say a thing. And he's just gonna be laying there until the cops find him. And but like that line is definitely going to be iconic at some point. And because like this movie's only 2.5 years old at this point since it got released. But what are some of the other things that you love most about the movie?
Obviously, the people we grew up watching. Although we shouldn't have been watching any of this stuff, but you know, who cares? Thanks.
That's
Thanks,
water under the bridge now.
I don't know. It's just the All-Star cast. It's like people won't watch a single baseball game until like the All-Star game. Like it's just that thing that draws you in, where you got all these incredible actors that you grew up watching, and like your family grew up watching, or well, they were like, yeah, mom would be growing up, grandpa, like adult stuff, and it's just like the generations, like, because this is a multi-generational film.
Yep.
Because it was like grandparents and then the parents and then the kids all grew up, like went through watching all these people in all these iconic movies. And then you take all these iconic actors and actresses and put them together. And it's like the Avengers of gangster movies.
The irony.
Yeah.
They're just a bunch of amusement park rides.
I have one more that really I like narrations, especially I get what it's first person. Like
so like because like somebody telling their own story, first person narration.
That's a thing when you're watching a 3.5 hour movie. You can't be hyper focused on it. Like you eventually are like glazing over a little bit, no matter how interesting this movie is. So you miss some things, but you have somebody actually telling you and giving you like background information or like supporting information towards like the whole film that's going on. And it just happens to be like Robert De Niro talking about the whole situation. And I think that like who could be a better like narrator for it other than I feel like Joe Pesci would be kick ass, but obviously he wasn't Frank. But
yeah. Well, I know because for Scorsese's like 3 big mafia films specifically, obviously you have Goodfellas and you have Ray Liotta narrating all the Goodfellas for you. Casino, it's mostly De Niro, but they do actually have points where like Joe Pesci starts narrating, Sharon Stone starts narrating. But like this is just Scorsese filmmaking right off the bat, that long take walking through the nursing home, which I feel like that this is setting the tone why this movie's different than some of his other mafia movies, because like you see those other kinds of shots in strip clubs and the Copacabana. This one, you're literally trudging through a nursing home and you come up to this old Frank Sheeran, old as hell, nobody left in his life. That whole interaction with the cops at the end, you're like, come on, nobody's left. Just tell us. And that's like that sad realization that like all the stuff that he did left him completely alone. None of his daughters wanted to have anything to do with him. All of his friends are dead. everybody worked with died, and he's just sad old man sitting in a nursing home and then telling us this crazy story that, like, I guess the big question of the movie is like, did he really kill him? And because the thing is, it's like,
yeah, you're never gonna know because you can't find a damn body.
which I know the movie explains that because they cremated him. They
This
hooked
thing
him.
with that, it's like if anybody ever goes missing, it's referred back to freaking Jimmy Hoffa, because
Right.
it's, again, like all the iconic people and all the iconic movies been in. It's the most iconic crime like ever. No
Well,
one could freaking find him. And if somebody disappears, you're just like, yeah, he got Hoffed or like shit like that. That's just like an iconic thing of its own. Not even what he had done his whole like adult life.
well, I think it's really interesting at the end of the movie when like the nurse is taking care of him and he's like looking through the pictures, like, you know who that is? No idea who Jimmy Hoffa was. And that's an interesting thing because like I'm literally in the process of typing up my article for this. And I was talking about like we grew up in a household with 3 generations in it. Like mom grew up during that time. Grandpa, I'm sure as hell knew who Jimmy Hoffa was. And like we also grew up right outside of Philly with a bunch of Philly Italians and stuff like that. It's like this stuff was a big deal. And it's crazy, like thinking about like mom actually met Angelo Bruno at a particular family member's wedding, which I'm not going to get a detail on here. But the thing is, it's like seeing Harvey Keitel pop up as like Angelo Bruno. I'm like, saw him before, and that's the interesting thing about this movie in particular. Because if you think about Goodfellas, that's based on a true story, but they changed the names and some of the names, and also like I don't think that's as big as an iconic of a story. Casino, same deal. The Departed, not based off of real things. Gangs in New York, those people probably, some of them were probably real, but like it's hundreds of years ago. Like this was about something that people knew about and is still a mystery. And I find it very bold that like went about like, hey, this is what happened. And it's just like, seems very feasible. This is what happened. But the thing is, I guess the only people that are going to know if it really did happen is Frank Sheeran. Because like if he really pulled the trigger, but that's the thing. And it's such an interesting context too, because like you have the Kennedys in this. Like
and how he
about
Bobby.
Not like Bobby Kennedy, because Bobby Kennedy want to come after them. Because what is it, Jack Houston, from like Boardwalk Empire and stuff like that, plays Bobby Kennedy in this. And then you have a whole bunch of other actors too, like I mentioned before, Ray Romano's in this, and that was so interesting seeing Ray Romano in a Scorsese movie, but he fits so perfectly. Like,
pleasant surprises I've seen in a movie, because I mean the only thing I know him from, like completely honest, is Raymond. Like
everybody loves Raymond.
Yeah, that's it.
And like I know he spent years voicing Manny in Ice Age, and like the last movie that I saw him in was in The Big Sick, where he plays Camille's future father-in-law. But like this was really cool seeing him in this, and he's so great as the lawyer because like he's funny and he just has that presence. Stephen Graham as was it Tony Pro, the other gangster who Hoffa has like a whole entire thing with. That whole entire scene where it's like, you're late. It's like, you got to take into account for traffic. I got 15 minutes. It's like, no, you stay for 10 minutes. That's traffic. And like that whole entire back and forth with each other. And they just like, rah! Start attacking each other. Stephen Graham's great. He pops up in so many things. He's an early original Guy Ritchie actor. So he was in like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and like Snatch. He's in that show Taboo with Tom Hardy. He was in he was Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire. And that's probably why he popped up in this too, because Scorsese directed the first episode of that show and like produced it and everything. But like, I know you're not a huge fan of Jesse Plemons, but like Jesse Plemons is Jimmy Hoffa's like idiotic son who's completely dense. Like, you literally just dropped your dad off to get whacked and you have no idea.
About that whole the fish scene. That was I don't know if it was supposed to be funny. I really don't.
It was supposed to be funny. Come on.
It was funny as hell, dude. I'm just sitting there and it's like, what kind of fish is? I don't know, the kind you eat. It's like, wait, well, so where'd you get it? It's like, what does it matter? I don't know, a fish place. But how did you get this fish? Did you go out, like, he didn't say, do you want a salmon? You want a trout? And the guy's like, I don't know why it matters so much, man.
I just picked it up for a friend. A friend asked me to go pick up a fish for him. Yeah. Which the actor who played Sal, I don't know who he is, but like he was great in that scene, like Jesse Plemons. And what's so interesting and makes that scene so interesting too is realistically, Hoffa's a fish. He goes, picks up his dad, no questions asked. Like, why do we have to go back to the house? Why do I have to pick up my dad? Nope, just does it. And what happens? Dad gets killed. And I think that's like an interesting precursor with the whole fish thing, like showing that like this dude does not ask questions. This guy has no sense of awareness at all. And that's why they were able to clown him so easy. Like, he literally served his dad up and like, why would you drive away after you dropped the dad off like that? Like, he didn't even check to see if he got in okay. He just like drives away. Just like, this guy's an idiot. And well, and they even like De Niro even talks about that. He's just like, was he really in on it? I don't think so. I think that kid was just dumb. And it just and they took advantage of him. And Jesse Plemons is actually going to be the lead in his Killers of the Flower Moon. Along with Leo's in it, De Niro's in it. So that's going to be interesting.
Lucky that they good guys in there because I hate him.
Brendan Fraser and John Lithgow are in it too. It's going to have a pretty stacked cast. I'm looking forward to it. Apparently, like, I don't know all the details, but like it was one of the cases that was like the dawn of the FBI. It's like a early 1900s Western kind of thing. But it's based off of like a famous book. I think Jess has read it. But specifically this, like, just the cast in this movie, like Anna Paquin, I feel like doesn't get a whole lot to do, but like she has an important part as his daughter, who's just like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. And it's so interesting because like the younger version of her gets a lot more to do in the film, like how quickly she warms up to Jimmy Hoffa because he's a warm and like charismatic guy. And then you have the way that she interacts with Russell Bufalino, Joe Pesci's character, at Christmas, and she's just like, thank you. And like, because like she's afraid of him. She knows, like, I don't think she's stupid. She knows what her dad and what he does, and it's very obvious they're not great people. And like, she literally watched her dad almost beat a shopkeeper to death right in front of her, which let's talk about that scene for a second. Would it kill them to get a body double?
No, that's what I was like. That's in my notes. I get that you want to age people. Okay. It's not the worst looking thing in the world, but it's obvious.
It is obvious.
I feel like even if you didn't know Robert De Niro, or anybody else who had that, you would still be like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, why does this look like a really good video game? Almost.
Yeah.
But you go through all that trouble, all that money to make somebody look youthful, and you got an 80-year-old trying to curb stomp some dude, and he up like he's 80. Like, there's nothing. We're not picking on elderly people here. We're making a point. If you're trying to make people look youthful, use a damn body double, because you don't really see his face.
No, and that's the thing. Even walking up to this shop, it looks like a grandpa walking his granddaughter up to a shop. Like, that's the thing. De Niro walks like an 80-year-old. He stomps people in the face like an 80-year-old. That's the tricky thing. It's like, you could do all you want with their face and make them look younger, but you can't physically make somebody move younger. And like, I know that's what Scorsese wanted to do. And like, for the most part, I could get past that. But like, you could have just had a younger actor play some of them when they were really young, because they had to de-age De Niro from 80 to 20s.
Yeah, it's impossible.
No, and
still look like he was in his 50s.
I know. Like, no matter how much, like, did he, and that's what kind of throws off the movie watching experience. Like, was he 50 when he had a kid? And just like,
when I first saw it, I'm like, how old he's supposed to be? Because he doesn't look young. He still doesn't. And that's what I wanted to say. I'm like, there are plenty of young, good actors that could have done all those guys when they were more youthful.
mm-hmm.
As opposed to doing that. You still would have saved more money anyway.
Yeah, and you definitely would have saved more money.
Give more young Italian American actors some exposure.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have $100 million for there's no miracles here, okay? You can't go from 80 to like mid to late 20s.
Because they even showed the shot when he's in the war. Like, he's like supposed to be 18 years old. Like 18, 19 years old. Yeah, right. I think it worked considerably better for Pesci and Pacino, because like, they were never introduced that young in the movie. Yeah. They were already at a certain age, and like, it was believable that they looked like they were in their 40s or 50s with the de-aging. It was just the De Niro one was just tough to swallow at times.
Because there's so much screen presence as well. Mm-hmm. That, like, he's literally it's about him. I know it's like what happened to Jimmy Hoffa or what did it like whatever.
Yeah.
But he's about Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So from word go, fast forward 3.5 hours, he's in it like, got what, 90%?
Almost the whole entire movie. And when he's not in it, he's talking over it. And like, obviously it worked really well when he was old and like in the nursing home and stuff like that. And I'm assuming they made him look a little bit older in some of those scenes.
Yeah, I don't think he looks like straight white hair, and I don't think.
Yeah, but like what was some impressive scenes in acting too is like Joe Pesci in the prison after his stroke, and like Jess pointed this out, the pill rolling. Like, after you have a stroke, you do like these like little moments, and like that moment when they had like the wine and like they were dipping the bread in it and like sucking on it and stuff like that. I'm like, this is some good old guy acting right here. And like, it was sad too, because that moment where he's like, I'm gonna go to church, and De Niro's just like, yeah, he went to church and then he went to the hospital and then never came back. It's just like, This is like really somber. Like if you think that Goodfellas has a third act that just like goes dark, like this movie's just like, yeah, this is the consequences of doing all this stuff. You're gonna be alone and have nobody at the end. And that last shot, that sad shot of just like looking through the crack in his door, him sitting alone in his nursing home room, just been like, oh, what the hell is that song? That was such a great song that they kept using throughout the whole entire movie. That was like I think that was legitimately like a 50s classic. I'm gonna pull up soundtrack from The Irishman, but like
I mean, so
it was,
and also,
which also shout out to Robbie Robertson from the band, still working with Scorsese ever since The Last Waltz. He's the one who puts his soundtracks together. So,
no wonder that like, no wonder the soundtracks are like the way they are.
yeah.
I get it, like the times that it took place in,
Mm-hmm.
but they're fire. Like,
Yeah, like oh my god, the any soundtrack in any Scorsese movie is amazing. And not only did Robbie Robertson put the soundtrack together, he composed the score too. Which that score is really effective, especially in like the later part of the movie. There's just like this dark, ominous feel to like, yeah, things are getting dark now. And there's some really emotional scenes, especially towards the end of the film. Like, God, when De Niro's on the phone with Hoffa's wife, trying to like calm her down, and you're just like, he knows. And that's the thing. You could tell he didn't want to do that.
yeah, that was, yeah.
Like you can tell he didn't want to kill Jimmy Hoffa. You can tell he didn't want to have to take responsibility for that. But he was loyal to Russell until the end, all the way until the end. And that's, I think, one of the things that makes this stick out compared to some of his other mafia movies is like the bigger like context of the movie of like this was dealing with big political issues of the time because there was like the Kennedys trying to like take down the Teamsters and take down the mafia, which is funny because I'm pretty sure the mob helped them get elected. And that was the thing because he wanted to take down Jimmy Hoffa, but Jimmy Hoffa was getting on the wrong side of the mob because the mob was the one that helped support Kennedy getting into the White House. At least we're going to assume that everything in this movie is fact for the sake of this conversation because like so much of that speculation, but like it was very obviously like the Buffalinos were very close to Kennedy's dad because they had that part where like once Kennedy's dad died, Bobby just like went off on them and tried to like take stuff down. But like that whole entire thing adds so many layers to it because like this is a great mafia movie, but it also has a lot to say about like this place in our country at the time and all the politics and like Jimmy Hoffa yells like, "Hey, just mad that I gave Nixon money." And because like he backed Nixon. And at one point, Nixon got into office, so that was good for Hoffa. But wasn't good for the Buffalinos, and they didn't like where Jimmy Hoffa was going, and then somebody had to say goodbye. And that's the thing, because like there's so much going on in this movie. This is a 3.5 hour movie. There's a lot that goes on in this movie. And there's a lot to process. It has a lot to say. But I guess what were some of the other things that you had in like your notes that you wanted to talk about?
I think we were like touching on it. You could tell how like pained you really could see it in De Niro's acting. Like he did an incredible freaking job of showing that it to do what he did to Jimmy Hoffa. And I'm pretty sure knowing like when Jimmy Hoffa's like, oh, I know what's going on now. Like, fuck, man.
When he
Yo.
walked into the house and that camera shot of it panning across the empty living room, and it's just like, yeah, he knows he knows something's wrong.
Yeah, that whole part was like, holy shit. Ouch. Like, you're watching a movie, watching like the relationship progress and like how like essentially they're like family. Like that's how close they got, and then damn, dude, you done me dirty. Wow. I don't even hate you, but I'm like disappointed in you. Like that kind of shit. And you're like, oh man.
It was that like pull the rug out from you moment. Like I feel like this was more predictable than when Goodfellas, when Tommy's going in for his initiation and walks in and sees an empty room, and then he's like knows like F, I am done, and they shoot him, and you're just like, but like obviously like we all knew where this movie was going.
Yeah.
Like, we all knew like this was leading up to that point with him killing Jimmy Hoffa, but like that doesn't stop that scene from being that hard. And like that, what was even harder is one of the scenes after it when he goes home and they're talking about him missing on the TV. And this is where his daughter, Anna Paquin's character, gets to have a moment, is when she looks at him, she knows what her dad does. And she 100% knows that her dad had something to do with that. And that's when their relationship was dead. Because, like, done. Like, Frank Sheeran had no chance of reconciling his relationship with his daughter after that point. And that's the sacrifice that he made to stay loyal to his friend, Russell. And because the thing is, like, what if Frank said no? What do you think probably would have happened to him?
Yeah, he'd be dead.
He'd be dead.
Yep.
And no. And
there's no A or B. There's you do this or you're done.
And you knew, I think the moment he really knew what was up was when Russell's like, you're gonna go to you're gonna go to the airport. You're gonna hop on a helicopter. It's like, we're going on a helicopter to go to Detroit. It's like, you are getting on a helicopter to go to Detroit. And it's just like him getting sent up early. Because, like, you know, throughout most of the film, they have this road trip, right? They're driving across Pennsylvania, through Ohio, up to Detroit. And then the second he knows that, like, Russell's sending him only to go to Detroit, it's just like, well, I don't think Jimmy Hoffa's making it out of that trip. And Frank knows it too, and he's just like... And that was a sad moment when Jimmy Hoffa shows up to the place to meet with... I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be Tony Pro because they were trying to reconcile stuff, and he shows up and nobody's there, and he's walking out of that like club, and they pull up in the car. His son driving, Sal in the front, and Frank in the back, and Jimmy Hoffa gets like really belligerent with like Sal, and then notices Frank sitting in the back seat, and it has like a moment of like, "Hey, Frank," and you're just like, well, he's about to kill you. I wouldn't get so excited to see your friend. And that's the one thing. It's like when I watch Goodfellas, I don't get sad for anybody. Yeah. Like, I hate Henry so much. And by the end of the movie, I was like, you're still an asshole. And like even Casino, like I do feel a little bad for I do feel a stronger connection with De Niro's character in Casino than I do with Henry Hill. But like this movie, and I think what really makes this stand out compared to them in some ways is like you care about these characters and some of the relationships they have, and you're just like, this makes me sad seeing like this play out this way.
I don't think I've seen a mafia movie where you actually feel bad for anybody in that, other than obviously like kids, but like this is literally the movie that was like, wow, shit, that hit you right in the feels.
Yeah, and you're just like, I did not sign up for a fields trip, and I didn't sign up for one that was 3.5 hours long.
Damn
And
it,
like
Face.
Martin Scorsese. I want to see Zach Galifianakis in a Martin Scorsese
I
movie.
do too.
That has to happen at some point. I feel like the only thing that I regularly see him pop up in anymore is Bob's Burgers. Um, he's Mr. Fischoder's brother.
Okay.
But well, and he's gonna be in the movie. But
I have like one more because we touched on everything.
Yep.
My favorite character and actor in that movie, the whole movie, and it's not even close, is Joe Pesci. He was freaking fire, dude. And the fact that he hadn't been in anything in forever, like most of our lives, he hasn't been in.
Yeah.
And he gets brought back, and man, dude, he was incredible. Like you could feel everything, all the tension, all the anger, he killed it. He killed it.
And what was so crazy is he didn't have to go like Tommy, or like he didn't have to go like Tommy DeVito from Goodfellas or anything like and just like start like freaking out. Like he didn't have to do that because he was scary enough. He was just sitting there and just like
as quiet and it was like shit.
Well, and what was I think one of the most terrifying moments is when he was having that conversation at the end of their road trip, because which wasn't the end of the road trip because they didn't make it to Detroit yet. And when he tells Frank, it's like, you're going to Detroit, and you're just like,
I guess I'm going to Detroit.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's not a person you say no to. And I think he channels that same energy of like, I know Harvey Keitel's name got thrown out in like that first teaser thing. Like he's not in the movie that much. And I'm pretty sure Angelo Bruno doesn't pop up after like the first third of the movie. But like that scene when, Frank gets asked to blow up that place, that laundromat or whatever in like Maryland or something. And he gets brought in to that restaurant. The waiter turns the sign to say they're closed, and they go sit down at that table, and it's just Harvey Keitel sitting there at the table, and Joe Pesci sitting right next to him. He's just like, you know who else owns that laundromat? I do. And you know what? You're very lucky that you have a friend like this man to vouch for you. And like pointing at Joe Pesci, and he's just sitting there as intimidating and tense as Harvey Keitel is. And I think, because like you put the nail on the head, like you haven't seen Joe Pesci in literally anything in 20-something years. Just to see him pop up like this and just be that intimidating and just that great is so fantastic. And along with the others, you haven't seen them do this kind of acting in years. Because, like, I don't think any of them have had meaty roles like this in a long time. Like, De Niro, I think the last time he was given anything like this was Silver Linings Playbook, which he got nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for. And I think that was 2011 at this point. And that was 8 years before this. And like I said before, he was doing shit like Dirty Grandpa with Zac Efron. Like, that's where his career was going. Which also, fun shout out to the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie where Robert De Niro played Fearless Leader. Because I'm pretty sure, well, besides The Godfather Part 2, that might have been one of the first times we saw Robert De Niro. But like, Robert De Niro was in a point of his career where he wasn't really doing stuff like that. And like Al Pacino, I really like the movie Danny Collins that he did, where he basically plays like a fictionalized version of Neil Diamond, but like Italian version. And his song, instead of Sweet Caroline is like, "Hey baby doll, what's going on?" And it's like the same exact like cadence as like Sweet Caroline. I'm like, I wonder who he's supposed to be in this movie.
Great song.
I know you have some feelings about that song. But like besides that, like Al Pacino really hadn't done anything, and Harvey Keitel, he interesting enough, he played Meyer Lansky in a small budget indie mafia movie that came out recently, who Hyman Roth from Godfather Part 2 is based off of. So like besides that, like Harvey Keitel hasn't really popped up in much either since like the 90s. Like anything of like really of note. Like, you know, he was in Pulp Fiction, he was in Reservoir Dogs, From Dusk Till Dawn. But like this was so cool seeing all of them like acting.
Yeah.
Cause like this is a side note, but like I just wrapped up an Apple TV Plus show that I want to recommend. The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. And it's Samuel L. Jackson playing a man who has Alzheimer's, and his caretaker's nephew's murdered. And he winds up getting this really experimental treatment that brings all of your memories back for a short period of time. And he uses his memories to try to find the killer of his nephew. And like this is like the most legit acting I've seen Samuel L. Jackson do in a long time. That isn't him just showing up screaming mother effer or being Nick Fury. So, and like sometimes when you see stuff like that, and Scorsese has that in him, he did it in Silence with Liam Neeson. Like Silence isn't Taken or Taken Religion.
Or, like almost straight to DVD shit that Liam Neeson's been doing.
Yeah. So like Liam Neeson popped up in Silence for like 15, 20 minutes and killed it in an hour, a 2 hour and 40-minute movie.
That's the thing. Sometimes they're just like, I'm going to get some money while I can, quick money, and that's it. And then they get with these bangers, and you're like, wow. I remember that. Like,
yeah. But I guess, do you have any last minute thoughts, comments about The Irishman?
I feel like it lived up to that like 15-second trailer. And I am happy that I got to watch it on my couch at home. I will tell you that. I don't think I like it's surely not, it's an incredible movie, but it's not one of those where you go in for a 3-hour Avengers movie and you felt like you were in there for an hour.
Mm-mm.
They have those kind of freaking like that, how you feel watching one of those movies, because you're just, and then with this one, it's like, it feels, I don't know if it feels 3.5 hours, but it still feels like it's a long movie just because there's so much to take in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of meat and potatoes in this thing. And they throw in all the sides. Like, it's a lot to take in.
Well, and this isn't Wolf of Wall Street. Like, this isn't like wall to wall, like high energy in your face craziness.
I'm not going anywhere. Or what?
I'm not going anywhere. But like, this is, and especially when it gets to its third act, this really takes its time to lay out, like, these are the consequences of living this life. And that's not the kind of thing that a lot of gangster movies show you.
No.
Well, to be fair, most of them don't get that old. So
also, yeah, that's true.
And like seeing him as a decrepit old man living a lonely life all by himself in a nursing home, that's just like, damn. That's what you get. It's like, that's what you get for killing people for a living.
This is what, like, I know it's not 100% like straight like mafia movie, but I feel like this is what all mafia movies in the future should try to get to, because there's a lot of cliche bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
out of the movies, and you like it's annoying. This one it doesn't like get there. It's like a serious ass movie.
Mhm.
It's drama filled. It's like tears at your heartstrings, and like it legit shows like what the life actually is. There's not a whole lot of glam in that movie
Mhm.
because it's not like The Sopranos. It's not I always wanted to grow up to be a gangster. Like
Exactly.
not guys like grew up wanting to be, but there's you got money. Like that's what they got into it for. They didn't show them going crazy. I think like the only cliche thing really that I saw was there's never a good time to leave your wife, but this is when I did. Like, because I feel like that theme is in like everything. Mafia.
Well, yeah, and they didn't spend a whole lot of time like building up his wife or anything. It was just like she was his Italian, just his wife, and then like, well, gone, found somebody else, and just kind of like moved on from that. But yeah, this is a very different kind of mafia movie, and this feels like something like this. What this reminds me most of is Unforgiven, where it's like Clint Eastwood spent decades making westerns, and then Unforgiven happened, and just kind of like all that crap that happens on all these westerns and stuff like that. It's a bunch of bullshit, and this is the sad realization. The only difference is there wasn't like money rides at the end where like William Money shows up and like messes some people up at the end of the movie. But like that's still a sad, solemn, like kind of ripping the curtain back on westerns. This ripped the curtain back on gangster movies. It's like, yeah, this is what you really get. All your friends die, none of your family wants to talk to you, and you're just sad. Sometimes you're gonna have to kill people you really care about. And it doesn't matter because if you don't, you're dying.
Yeah.
But I love The Irishman. This made my top 5 in 2019, and that was a stacked year of movies. I miss 2019. There's so many great movies that came out, like Jojo Rabbit and Parasite and like Love Ford v Ferrari, Knives Out. There's just so many great things that came out that year, and then COVID happened, and 2020 was just a shit show, just of everything. But like movies, I don't feel like have fully bounced back from that yet, and maybe this year will, because like there's some legit stuff coming out this year, including more Scorsese. Spielberg's getting a new movie too. But speaking of, so yeah, this was my last Scorsese for now. So starting next week, be jumping into some Steven Spielberg with his short film Amblin, and then I'll be doing this until December because that's how many movies Steven Spielberg has. So close, Ethan. Carpenter almost won.
I want to be reminded. I slept on it, man. Slept on it.
Well,
I was like, he's got. I woke up and he didn't.
He lost by 1 vote. Here's the thing. My next time that I do this, I'm asking people for nominations, what directors they want to see most in the tournament. I think I'm going to at least get one Tommy Wiseau, which will literally just be one goddamn movie, and it's just going to be The Room. And I have to freaking I really hope it doesn't win. But the thing is, like, so when I start doing that, I'm assuming it's either Carpenter or Burton, who both did really, really well. Like Tim Burton and Carpenter both made the Elite Eight. And
they should.
Yep, it was great. But last piece of the show, recommendation. So Ethan, what would you like to recommend to all the lovely folk out there?
All right, so this is going to be a video game. As you know, Shane, I love video games.
Yes.
I love dressing up as video game characters as well. This is from my favorite video game franchises of all time. Nothing's even close. This is like a Sega company, Atlas / Shin Megami Tensei, and the name is Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. So this game came out around 2012, I believe. I can't remember the year. And it's one part of the Persona series, and they actually do follow, like, every installment of that is following the story and progressing it. And this is the second installment, essentially, of that. And it's essentially a visual novel / 2D fighting game. And it's absolutely incredible. They had just ported it. It was on the 17th of last month. Ported it to Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Steam. I'm not 100% sure if it's on Xbox. I don't follow Xbox too much because I'm a Sony guy through and through. But it's a great game to get on Switch because you can play it on your TV and you can bring it wherever the heck you want. And I promise you, you're going to want to, and you're probably going to need to, because there is a lot of text and dialogue in it. And you're going to want to be able to just pick it up instead of like just having it chill on your dock. So that's the thing I recommend. It's like $30 download on Switch. It's like $30 download on Steam. It is worth the $30, 100%. And that's my recommendation for y'all.
There you go. So maybe at some point on Wasteland Talks, we'll have some episodes geared towards video games, already branching out with TV shows and baseball. Because if you haven't checked out Ethan, Dave, and I talking about baseball going into this season, go check out that episode. But I don't play as much video games anymore because all the lovely things that I do with this take up a lot of my time watching movies and stuff like that. But like, I'm a big Nintendo guy. I'm looking over at my GameCube over there with my 3 games that I have left, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! False-Bound Kingdom, MVP Baseball 2005, and Super Smash Brothers Melee. And I have my Switch. So, but my recommendations are the movie variety. So one film that just came out, it's a brand new documentary called Cal. And this is definitely for like people who love movies and not like casual moviegoers probably. But like this is literally a hour and 37-minute documentary following the life of a cow on a UK farm from it giving birth to a calf, seeing what they do to them to make veal, and all the way up until when the cow's not useful anymore. So like this is a pull no punches, very just like they're following this cow around for an hour and 37 minutes. Some of it's cute, some of it's not. Some of it will make you pretty sad. And I don't know how it'll make you feel about meat. But, you know, that's the kind of documentary that it is.
It may or may be into vegan.
Yeah. The more fun recommendation I have, because I am recording an episode of Wasteland Talks for a spoiler discussion of this movie, is The Nice Guys, which Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe play a private investigator and a enforcer who team up to figure out what happened to a young woman who's gone missing. And it takes place in the 70s. And both of them are absolutely amazing. That movie's infinitely quotable. And I want to see so many more installments of these two running a private investigation firm. But, you know, it didn't make that much money, so we're probably not going to get it. But, oh my God, Ryan Gosling is playing such a mess up. And Andreas Rice plays his daughter, who's so much smarter than him and so great. There's so many great quotable lines. Like they go to a Playboy party basically, and she's like, "Dad, why are there a bunch of hookers and stuff around?" She's like, "Honey, don't say and stuff, just say there's hookers around." And he falls in the pool, and they have a bunch of mermaid, like porn stars dressed up as mermaid. He runs into Russell Crowe later, just like, "Where were you?" And he's like, "I was interviewing the mermaids. I was doing my job. What were you doing?" And Russell Crowe's so great too. And he is kind of like, he's not the smart like sharpest tool in the shed, but like he's an enforcer, he's the muscle, and like he's like bulky Russell Crowe. So like they just play off each other so well, and it's such a great movie. So much fun. So if you haven't watched The Nice Guys, go watch it. Chances are it's probably on HBO Max. Honestly, I have it.
I'll probably have to get your login again on my phone.
There you go. But those are my recommendations, and that was The Irishman. So Ethan, thank you so much for coming on as always.
Thank you. It was a good time. I didn't think we were going to have that much to talk about, even though it was a 3-hour movie, but
there you go.
You started saying things started popping in my head, and I'm like, I told Joey, I'm like, I'll be right back in.
Well, you go play with my nephews and say hello. And nice. But so tune in next week when I start Spielberg for 8 months. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.